In this video, we'll take a look at the major user interface improvements coming to version 0.28 of Keep the Peace. Hi everyone, my name is Nick, and I'm the creator of Keep the Peace, an in-depth policing strategy game currently in development for the PC. Currently I'm working on the next major update for the Keep the Peace prototype, version 0.28. This version will include major improvements to the game's mechanics and artificial intelligence, but today I want to take you through the user interface enhancements I'm working on. For any complex strategy game, the user interface plays an extremely important role. It can make the game a smooth, satisfying experience, or make it a frustrating mess. Over the past 2 years, I've experimented with many different approaches to the game's UI. Some of these experiments have been promising, while others failed utterly, but all of them helped us to better understand what works and what doesn't. I'm sure in the future there'll be many more improvements to make, but I feel like we're finally zeroing in on an approach that works. If you've played earlier versions of Keep the Peace, the overall layout of the new version should be recognizable. You have a bar along the bottom with some buttons and statistics, and you've got lists along the left side and the right side showing active jobs and units, respectively. The bottom bar is largely the same as before, aside from some layout and color changes, some new icons, and some new tooltips, including a more detailed tooltip that appears when hovering over your budget. Otherwise, things are largely the same. There's some stats here, which I'll actually explain in more detail in an upcoming video that I'll be doing about game mechanics. There's some large buttons for accessing the officer and unit management windows. Those are the only two that work in the current version. There's the current date and time, some speed controls for the game, and buttons for opening up a debug panel and the main menu. The units listed on the right side of the screen are now organized into groups based on their current activity, whereas they were just floating on the screen in a single list in the previous version. You can collapse or expand these groups to focus on certain things. Officers are now represented by icons which show their specialty, if they have one, something I'll talk about more in my next video about the new officer skills and development system. As before, you can select a unit by clicking them, but now details about the selected unit show up down here in the bottom right of the screen rather than as a tooltip or pop-up like before. This makes the interface more consistent with the vast majority of other strategy games, and so should hopefully make things more intuitive for folks that are playing the game for the first time. Information about the unit's current job and assignment is shown, as well as information about the officers assigned to the unit, including their specialty, their current activity, and new in this version, a little portrait. The job list on the left has also been changed. Previously, you would click a button to toggle between displaying missions and incidences, and I really didn't like this. If you were on the Missions tab, it was really easy to miss important information about your incidents, and vice versa. So I wanted the player to be able to see their missions and their incidences simultaneously, and I wanted that to be the default behavior of the interface. Thus, in the new version, these are both shown grouped on the left side of the screen. If you do want to hide a group, you can collapse it by clicking it, like we did with the unit sections, but the default behavior is to have both open, which is especially useful if you're going through all your units and giving them assignments, sending some of them on a mission and assigning some to various incidents. You don't want to have to toggle back and forth between the missions tab and the incidents tab. As before, if you do have a unit selected, you can just right-click the mission or right-click the incident that you want to assign them to, and they'll go on their way. You can now create a new mission by clicking this button at the top of the mission list, and if you click an incident, you can see more details about it. Like with units, this now shows up here in the bottom left, rather than in a tooltip like before. There's a little portrait and icon for each element within the incident, things like suspects and witnesses and so on, and you can mouse over them for more details. I've also made substantial updates to the game's management windows, so if I open the officer management screen, This is the new list of candidates that you can browse when you want to hire new officers for your department, compared to the old version, which was just a dry table of data that had a lot of wasted space. This new version is much more visual, with portraits of the different officers and the ability to click on them for more detail. While we're here, I'll take the opportunity to note, as I have in the past, that all these officer models are still placeholders. They're one of the few things left in the prototype that are still from a third-party asset pack, and I'm planning to replace them with original art very soon. If I jump to the Officers tab, where you can see the officers you've already hired for your department, the changes here are fairly similar. Notably, there's a bunch of new information here about skills, which is related to the new officer development system. But again, I'm going to have a new video, the next video, which goes into this in more detail. There's also a manage button here, which will reveal various actions, so you can do things like promote an officer or fire them, but that's still a work in progress. Also a work in progress are these buttons above the officer list. Eventually you'll be able to sort and filter these lists, but I haven't implemented those functions yet. So that's the gist of the new UI. There's still obviously a lot that's a work in progress, and alongside all this UI work, I've also been overhauling the game's artificial intelligence and a bunch of the game's mechanics, including bringing back several improved features from earlier versions that were temporarily taken out last year while we rebuilt some things. And of course, I've also been implementing the new officer skills and development system. My hope had been for version 0.28 to be ready right now, but there's still a bunch more work to do across all of these areas, so it'll be a few more weeks yet. In the meantime, though, I'll have several new videos over the next couple of weeks showing you the new officer development system, some new and improved game mechanics, and some improvements I'm making to the AI. So I hope you'll look forward to that, and hopefully we'll all be playing version 0.28 very soon. If you have any questions or feedback about the new UI, please do share below. I'll do my best to respond to your questions as soon as possible, and your feedback will help make future versions of the game even better. As always, thank you so much for supporting Keep the Peace. If you haven't already joined our Alpha Team Supporters Club, that's where you can further contribute to development, participate in our development community, and play prototype versions of the game right now. Check out our website at playktp.com for further details.